Thriving. I am Dr.RandallBell. Hello, Tanya Brown.
Hello, Randy.
Nice to see you. And believe it or not, our guest has decided to come back.
I know. Can you believe?
I thought we scared her off for sure. Kathy Buckley.
I hate to say it, people, but they got me chained to this table. Would somebody get me out of here? I didn't come
You're
back.
not
They didn't
supposed
let
to
me
say
leave.
anything, Kathy. Golly.
This has been great, Kathy. It really has.
I'm still, we have just nothing but great guests. But
Yeah.
Kathy, your story is just like, it's like just trauma overload.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to recap the first episode, and if you haven't watched it, watch it.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many fascinating aspects to it. But Kathy was born in the Midwest. I forget where you were born again. Tell me.
Bellevue, Illinois, Air Force.
Okay, so you're and then you moved to Ohio, where a lot of your story took place.
Yeah, I was raised in Ohio.
Yeah, and let me see if I can remember all this. You are born with a hearing disability right off the bat.
Yeah.
Which is tough. You're being bullied and locked in closets.
Mm-hmm.
You are being treated poorly by your brothers who are basically ignore you, your parents, your mom and your dad. Your grandparents are showing a little more empathy, but your dad's playing or your grandpa's playing pranks on you.
Mm-hmm.
You are bullied and then molested by your father, which is horrific.
Mm-hmm.
You're hiding in the forest to get away from that. Then you're raped at the age of 16. That alone destroys a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and understandably so. And then you are the person we all read about in the newspaper. You're laying on the beach when you're 20 and you're run over by a lifeguard jeep.
Well, that was the first time I got laid.
Oh, God. Jeez.
A little heavy.
I don't know what you do with that.
A little heavy. A ton of weight. You know what I mean? It kind of flattens you out. But okay.
You're so funny.
But I didn't get pregnant.
And then you
lady.
have a near-death experience. And I purposely didn't ask you what I wanted to ask you about that because I wanted to wait for this episode because and did I miss anything?
Yeah,
there?
the 5 suicide attempts in high school.
Golly, yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, there's so much trauma there. I
know,
forgot
that's
there were not 1 or 2 or 3, 5
5
suicide attempts
only in high school.
In high school,
Yeah.
for understandable reasons.
Yeah.
Just a profound sense of loneliness really going on. That's
Emptiness.
yeah, emptiness. And so you want to talk about trauma? Let's talk to Kathy Buckley.
I got to tell you, after
teach a
hearing
class
you,
on it.
I'm really depressed. After we clapped and all that, I'm like, wow, I got to get something for depression here.
Well, fortunately, we're in the survive mode, so we can kind of leave that.
A little bit.
I don't know if we leave it in the rearview mirror, but we start getting back on our feet.
Yeah.
Is probably a better way to put it. But let's start with that episode where I asked you the question, Kathy, that where did you kind of transition into the survival stage? And you mentioned the lifeguards story. So tell us more why that kind of got you more in your mind into the survival mode.
I think, when something like that happens, you get into the survivor mode. You don't really remember the experience.
Mm-hmm.
You're too busy going, why is my leg not working? Why am I hungry? Why, you're asking yourself these questions. And I got to be honest with you, I hate that WHY. I hate that word. I don't like it in the beginning of a sentence because you'll never have an answer for that 3 letters. You know what I mean? And so for me, my real transition, the Jeep accident, there was something about when the memory started coming back, that love that I got that day. See, I looked for 3 things my whole life, and that was love, warmth, and acceptance. But when I died, I got a love that was, you can't, I always ask God, I say, hey, God, how do I put this into words, And you can't. You really can't. It's like when you love somebody so much, you want to climb in their skin and become a part of them. You just can't put those things into words.
Mm-hmm.
And that love was just something I never experienced. and the warmth of acceptance, unconditional as I am, and the just being in that part. And then the greatest gift that I was given that day was a fourth gift, and that was the gift of choice. Someone loved me so much, and I've never been able to make a choice my whole life at that point. Let me make the decision as to whether it's going to go or stay. And of course, I mean, I just got run over by a Jeep, so I wasn't thinking too clearly that day, but I don't regret the choice I made. Like I said, you don't remember that experience. It was like almost like that experience went up on a shelf. And now you're trying to figure out, what do I do with me now? Why I fought so hard to stay alive was beyond me. But it became a focus on my physical being to bring it back. So my focus was not about the loneliness anymore. It was more about, how do I get up and walk again? How do I get this going again? And when I finally did started walking, I was still in Ohio. I joined the YMCA. I put inner tubes on my ankle and I would swim. I thought if I eat enough fish, I keep my brain alive. And if I swim, my legs would follow through with me. I was trying to get my body to remember something. And the power of belief is not believing it can happen. It's the commitment to the belief. You can't say, well, I believe this will happen. No, you got to make a commitment to it and follow through. And I would go to the YMCA every day because it was just down the street from where I was living. And when I finally walked, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I got a car, and I was living on $100. I think I had like $800 to my name that I was saving. And I just wanted out of Ohio. I thought if I leave Ohio, I could leave all my pain behind me. Little did I know, I took me with me.
Right. Wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah. Don't look back, because there I am.
And you went from Ohio to?
I just started driving. I put all my clothes in the car, started driving, and I ended up in California.
There you go.
I saw the ocean, and I said, well, I don't think I'm going any further. And I lived in my car for about 3 months, met a young lady. Her name was Ann Ablin. She was looking for a roommate. I moved in with her. And then 2 years later, I found out I had cancer. After a while, you get a little pissed off at life.
Yeah.
You just don't know what to do. So I went in, I had the surgery. I did everything the doctors said. They said they got it all. I'm like, yay. 6 months later, I get a phone call. We didn't get it all. And I got pissed off at life. I got mad. I got tired of the poking and the probing and telling me who I am and what I am and how I'm supposed to behave and what I'm supposed to be doing. This gift called life was given to me. And I let everybody else delegate it. And I got pissed off, and the memories of what my dad did started coming up. And so I changed my diet. I changed my attitude. And I got on a plane and flew to Ohio and confronted my dad. Everybody's going to get back what they gave me. I am not holding on to anybody's shit anymore. I'm too skinny to carry this load. And so I just went back home and I confronted my dad. It was the weirdest time of my life because the memories were there, but are they real? Did I make it up? Did I hear it from somebody else? You know, you question yourself. And it was Christmas. I went to his house. And my dad had bought me a peacock feather because I was going to school for fashion designing and I won the Peacock Award. And my dad said something about, I'm so proud of you. And he said, you know, you basically raised yourself and you put yourself through school. And I said, yeah, I feel like I have all the pieces in my puzzle, but there's one puzzle that I can't get, and it's centered in my picture. Because what's that? And I go, every Saturday morning, you and me in the bathroom or the bedroom. No, I don't remember anything like that. No, I don't remember. I thought I was crazy. I'm like, okay. I went upstairs. There was a couch in a room upstairs in the house. I sat there, and you know when you cry, you do this, make noise, it comes physical. I sat on that couch, and water poured out of my eyes with no physical movement. I didn't even know that was physically possible. My dad comes up, he's a very young-looking man, comes up and he's on his knees by the couch. He said, "My God, what have I done to you?" He said, "Don't hate all men, just hate me." I'm like, okay. But it was weird. My dad, as I'm sitting on the couch and I'm looking down at him, it was like his face had fallen off his skull. It was the weirdest vision I ever had. And I took empathy on him. I didn't take care of Kathy. I took care of him. And I don't think my conversation lasted 5 minutes. And I went back to back to California, doing my thing, kind of like shoved it in the back somewhere or something. And then a few years go by, my stepsister called me. Her mom and my dad are getting a divorce. And I'm like, I don't really care, you know. So she goes, well, I'm going to go stay with dad for a while. No, don't. It was an instant reaction. I don't know how it popped up out of nowhere. I'm like, no, don't, you know. And she says, why? And then she started telling me some of her incidents. I said, please don't go there alone. And so that was my reaction. I said, look, I'll fly back home. You and I can confront him. We'll get this all out. So I got back home. Gina didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I confronted him again. My dad kept asking me, what do you want? He goes, how can I help you? Well, what do you want? How many times is this going to come up? What do you want? How can I help you? And I just kept thinking, I don't know, maybe if you learn how to be happy, you can be an example of what happiness is, and I can be happy. I really didn't have an answer. So on the way home to my mother's house, I'm driving, and I kept hearing this in my head. What can he do to help? What can he do to help? Well, what he's done is done and over with. What my body is doing is storing the emotions from that experience. And I'm like, well, what can he do? I mean, I really did not have an answer. I wish I did. So I go back to California, start doing stand-up. And I'm watching myself on Regis and Kathy Lee one day, which is really weird, lip reading yourself, bizarre. And so
I hadn't thought of that.
I know. I was like, damn, you got a funny girl. So the phone rings and it's my dad. I thought he was calling to tell me he saw me on TV. I go, hey, hi, Dad, how you doing? He goes, I'm in a mental institution. I tried to commit suicide. The doctor said I have to call everybody and ask for forgiveness. Now, I swear to you, I thought I did. I thought I was over it. I kept moving forward with my life. And all of a sudden, it was like this little alien that had been living in the pit of my gut just came up and out of me and went, oh, my voice did something I didn't even know it was possible of doing, and it scared me. And I got back on the phone. I said, look at Dad, I got to be in Chicago. When I'm done in Chicago, I'll fly to Cleveland. But when I get there, you do not touch me, look at me, hug me, nothing. And that was the first time I took care of Kathy. But there was no way I can go back to Ohio. I can't go to Ohio and confront him again. I don't want this to happen every couple of years. I want this story over with. So I went to group therapy. 13 women in a half circle start telling their stories. And I'm like, geez, I was on a picnic compared to some of these people. These stories are horrific. And it came my turn. I said, what am I supposed to do? She said, you tell your story in detail. It was the first time I ever did that. And it felt fabulous. It was like I was spewing out this alien with each word I spoke. And it felt great. Now, this was my naive mind. I thought I would spew this out. There's another meeting in 2 days. And in that meeting, they would give me a solution on how to handle the situation with my dad, right? That was my belief system. So I go back 2 days later, I'm all excited because I now know how I'm going to handle this and get this out of my life. And I went, and the woman starts telling their stories again. Now I'm confused. I'm looking for a solution. So it came my turn, and I said, what are we doing? Because when you tell your story, till you get it all out. I said, I did 2 days ago. Who's deaf here? You or me? I really didn't understand the process. So when you have the coffee and the donuts and the cookies, my God, those women can eat the sugar. And so I went in and I said, I started talking to the ladies. I go, how long have you been coming here? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 5 years. I looked at her and I said, you've been coming here 5 years, twice a week to tell your story? She said, well, yeah. I said, wait a minute. That means you don't even live in the present. You're still in the past. So you cannot see the present, yet alone prepare for a future. I don't want this for my life. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be stuck in a story that no longer exists. Mm-hmm. So I canceled. The only job I ever canceled was my job in Chicago. I flew directly to Ohio. I walked into that office. Doctor was sitting on this side of the table. My dad was here on the other side. It just came out of me. And I went right up to him and go, what the hell were you thinking? Why did you say the things you said when you were touching me? Who the hell? And I was just letting him, giving out. And the doctor's like, you can't yell at him. He's suicidal. I go, that's okay. I'd kill him and save him the trouble. My dad looked at the doctor and he said, let her have at me. Mm-hmm. 2 things came to me in that moment. 1, let her have at me. How many times do I have to attack this man for what he did in the past? How many times do I have to feel the pain of the past in my present? And how many times am I going to drag it on into the future? The second one, which was really basically the first, was the day I got ran over by the Jeep, that gift choice. I decided to make a choice right then and there and live with it. And I said, Dad, stand up. I'm going to give you a hug right now. And when I hug you, from here on out, we no longer have this story. And I hugged him. And I said, now, if you want a relationship on my terms, you may hug me back. And he did. And we've had a beautiful relationship for 30 years. No. And then a few years ago, my dad had dementia, Alzheimer's. My brother put him in a nursing home. I flew home every month to help take care of him, acknowledge him. I could always make him laugh. I was fascinated with the disease, number one. It's like, where the hell did your head go this time? And one time I came off the road, I went into the lounge where all the residents were. They're in wheelchairs. And I don't know if you've ever dealt with anybody with dementia or Alzheimer's, but they have a clip on their shirt that's attached to the wheelchair. Apparently, when they stand up, they can fall over because their minds don't remember. An alarm will go off, and a staff member will help put them back in their chair. I did not know this. I came in, they were playing Frank Sinatra music. And these little people, all their little bodies are like kind of moving in the wheelchair, you know, they're getting into the Frank Sinatra song and they're loving it. Well, I got excited. And I admit, sometimes I don't think. But I got all like, come on, Frank Sinatra, let's get up and dance. And I'm lifting people's bodies out of their wheelchair. Oh, no. And I'm going, shake your booty, shake your booty. And I'm getting down the line. And before you know it, this whole crew of staff and doctors and nurses start coming in. And they go, what are you doing? I go, we're dancing. She goes, if they stand, they fall. And I'm like, oh, shit, here, come on, sit down, sit down, sit down. And I went and I sat with my dad. I sat with my dad and I said, look like I got myself in trouble again. He looked at me and says, now he's legally blind. He said, do you want to dance? And I thought in that moment, yeah, I want to create new memories. This is 30 years later. But so I helped him up. He was like 100 pounds. And it was just one of those where you rock back and forth, you know. And his left hand was weak and it fell and it landed on my butt. That little girl shot up out of me so fast. So fast. It was like, ah! That the adult me had to reprimand her and put her in her place. I said, no. You don't live in this time. Mm-hmm. I'm creating new memories with my dad. And I took his hand and I raised it up and we continued our dance. Then it was his birthday on June 16th. I flew home, got him a chocolate cake. We're water babies. I got him in a jacuzzi with the staff helping me for his birthday. He was so happy. He's been non-responsive for so long. He was so happy in that water. I'm shampooing his hair. I'm spraying all the nurses' aids. He's laughing. We're having the best time. And when it's done, they get him out and they wrap him up in towels. He looked like a little burrito. And they get him in, they get him dressed, they bring him to the lounge. I'm there, my baby brother's there, and my uncle. And he's laughing, having a good time, and out of nowhere, I don't know how he did it, but he grabbed my face, tried to look me square in the eye, and I swear he could see me as clear as day. And he said, Kathy, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, Dad, we don't have that story anymore. I didn't want his days to be filled with regret, but it's not my responsibility to take care of his conscience. So I told my brother, I said, Beth, give him some more cake. Give him some more cake, because if you feed him, they shut the hell up.
All right. Sugar.
I slept in the same bed with my dad for 3 nights in a row until he took his last breath.
And his birthday is coming up in 2 days.
I know. But I slept in that bed. And when he took his last breath, I looked to the heaven and I said, thank you. Not because he died, but because my dad taught me the greatest gift of life, and that's forgiveness.
Mm.
Forgiveness is unconditional love. In spite of what happened yesterday, I got to love him unconditionally.
Yeah.
And with that love, it taught me to love myself, to honor myself and respect myself. And because of that experience, I went to everybody that hurt me in the past and I gave it back to them. I am not your garbage can. You do not get to dump on me. And I just gave back to my mom. I gave back to brothers. I gave back to the kid that raped me. I gave back to my teachers and other people who have limited me, put labels of limitations on me to make me feel that I am not worthy to be a part of this world. I gave it back to them. And for those that I couldn't, I would write it and burn it. It's not mine to handle. This is my gift called life. This is my vessel. This is where my soul lives. And you guys diminished it all these years, and mainly because I allowed you. I didn't know any better. Now I know better, and I will fill this soul with as much love, happiness, by contributing, by giving back, by loving all those around me. Wasn't that fun?
Wow.
Wow.
Well, there's a lot to
I'm trying to
unpack
hold in my
there.
tears.
Well,
Oh, here.
I'm crying. It's your story, and I'm like bawling over here.
You big wuss.
I am. I'm sorry. I'm a sensitive girl.
Oh my God. We got her. We got her.
I know.
well, we all try and make sense of things, and there is so much to your story there, Kathy. Let me just throw out a theory I've got, because it all started with your NDE, your near-death experience, where you got to see a little glimpse of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems, you tell me if I'm right or wrong, but
You're wrong.
Well,
I'm not going to give
well,
this.
let me try another one.
I'm not going to give this boy a chance.
My theory is that glimpse of heaven woke up an inner strength, and you're doing, because I'm going to make a prediction. No one taught you how to do this, to go back and confront your dad and go back and confront your rapist.
No, I was pissed at the second time I was announced I had cancer, and I never got cancer again after that.
Right.
Because I took charge.
Well, thank God for that.
Yeah.
So my theory is that the NDE, because you're the third person I met in person who's had a near-death experience. And they all say virtually the exact same thing. And I know the BS, what I call ignorant dismissals, where people say, oh, that's just the brain shutting down and dopamine is excreted from the, blah, blah, blah. there's a book out. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called The Science of Near-Death Experiences, and literally millions of these have been documented. And these are a compilation of at least a dozen articles that have been published in peer-reviewed medical journals. And they have gone through all the explanations, and they are these medical doctors who have done the research are very proficient at debunking the debunkers. But anyways, getting back to this, my theory is that you got a glimpse of heaven, and that woke you up to this inner peace, this inner kindness, this inner love, and the love of God and the universe, whatever you want to call it. And that gave you the strength to propel you through this yet another layer of trauma with the cancer. And more importantly, confronting those who had, and to use your words, treated you as a garbage can to dump their garbage in, and straight out confront them. Is my theory right or wrong? You tell me.
No, it's right. God, I hate it when I have to tell a man he's right.
I know. Everybody does.
Talk about husband. Jeez. No, it's right, because what I did was one day I took a big poster board. I know this may sound a little weird, but I took a big poster board and I made a list of all the names of people who I felt had limited me in any way, whether it was verbally or actions that were taken. And I made a list. Who was on the top of the list? Me. Because no matter what happened in my life, it all depends on how I react to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote all their names down, and then I wrote down next to their name the actions and the words that they took on me. And I looked at that. And then I looked, what I wrote next to that is, how did it make me feel? What did it do to me emotionally? The next line I wrote down, how is it stopping me from living this life? Because the only one that can hold me back is me. Mm-hmm. But I gave that power over to these people because I didn't know any better. Nobody taught me how to take care of myself. And so what did I write after that one? What I learned from the experience. Everything that happened to you is an experience. And it's part of the story of your life. It's just part of what you go through. And if you look at yourself as a book, you can see as you flip the pages, there's always going to be blank pages that you have to fill. And it's up to you how you're going to fill those pages up. Are you going to stay in misery, or are you going to try to find the joy? So I went ahead and I wrote down the last line with gratitude. Gratitude for giving me the insight to see that it's not what happened to you, it's what you do with it. And so I had gratitude. So I went back and confronted people, because you know what? Everybody had their own story, their own side of their story, why they behaved that way. And I wanted peace of mind with certain things in my life. And so I went back and confronted them. Some were not happy about it. Some were grateful because they got to take that off their chest too. And so it's all boiled down to communication. And that's what it was boiling down for me. I got to love a man in spite of my past. I got to see his story. And I remember when my dad wanted to come to California, I did not want him in my house. I was scared. Mm-hmm. I wasn't afraid of him. I was afraid of the demon that took over him. And I didn't know if it still lived in him. And he wanted to go to Vegas. And I didn't want to pay for 2 rooms. And I asked him, are you okay with staying in 1 room with me? Because I thought I was strong enough too. He said, I'm okay with it. So all right. So we got a room, 2 beds and that little end table in the middle. Mm-hmm. And I was totally okay with it until the lights went out. That little girl jumped out at me again. And I had to put her in her place. And I said, look, you're 6 foot tall. He's 70-something years old. You can take him now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, some truth there.
But I know. But I wanted to keep confronting the situation with him. I don't want to live a life of fear of everybody.
Yeah.
And so I was blessed for the experience. I know it sounds silly, but I don't know if I ever would have known forgiveness if I didn't have that traumatic side with my dad, to see his side of the story so that I can create a new story with him. And what I did is I used to take a picture of myself when I was a little girl, and I had her in my wallet, and I made a commitment to her. I will honor you, respect you, and love you, and I will always be there for you, so you'll never be alone. And I would take care of you. And I did. And then one day I said, you're done. I don't need the picture anymore. I need to know who I am today. And how am I going to take care of this woman? You know, I'm sorry you didn't have the life you had. I'm sorry you had to go through what you went through. But every challenge in life, to me, is nothing more than an opportunity to see how strong you really are, because all of us have this incredible power within us, but we don't tap into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fuel, trauma creates a lot of emotional fuel.
Yeah.
And I often say the problem is not the problem. The problem is how you react to the problem. And if you choose to, and it's a choice, if you choose to tap into that fuel to do something good and remarkable and courageous, you end up like Kathy Buckley, you know, really.
People.
It gives your life a purpose. Yeah.
Well, if you look at your life as a gift and not a victim of society, see, I made a vow to myself a long time ago. And that was, I thought about if I was the mother of me and I gave birth to me, and I saw how my daughter was hating herself, trying to kill herself, when I think she's beautiful and smart, but she can't hear me. She's so stuck in this wraparound negativity. It would break my heart as a mother.
Yeah.
So I thought about my Heavenly Father, because he's truly my creator in my eyes. And I thought, oh my God, he gave me this incredible gift called life, and I've been totally disrespectful to it. It's like if I gave you a beautiful gift, you unwrapped it and you tossed it aside after I saved for months to get you that gift, and you act like it was nothing, it would hurt me. Yeah. And I thought, my Father in heaven must shed tears every time he sees that I allow myself to be abused. So I made a vow to myself that I would respect this gift with the cellulite, not happy about it, but I'm still respecting it. And but it's just, I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
You know,
You reminded me a lot of my mom.
I was thinking that.
why is she tall?
Well,
No,
she's
short.
she's tall and beautiful, just like you. And yeah, we've talked about your mom on this podcast.
Just very gracious, full of gratitude. The woman had so many things to complain about, to bitch, to moan, but yet I never heard her complain a day in her life.
No, she just,
Never.
but
She
she,
just
but
had that thing.
she had this thing where she was, like you say, she had a lot to bitch about. You know, your daughter's murdered by who I believe was her son-in-law, got away with it.
Kids are taken
in
away.
in this lifetime, at least. And I directly asked her about that once. And she was like you, Kathy. She just had this greater power to just forgive. It's just the unthinkable, the absolute unthinkable. What there's so much you said that to unpack. One thing I got to ask you, Kathy, is I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are wondering, tell us about confronting your rapist. I mean, that's
Robert.
Okay, Robert.
He was a friend of mine in school. And when I confronted him.
And tell us how old you were when you did that.
Pardon?
How old were you when you
16.
16 when you were raped, but how old were you when you confronted him?
Oh, that was about, I think it was about maybe 15, 20 years ago. I confronted him because I met him up in California.
Okay.
And he was Black. And so he's a good guy. I didn't understand what was happening. And so I confronted him. I said, what happened in the car that night? I said, what were you thinking? Because at that time I didn't know. Because Kathy, I got to tell you, it was weird. He said, you just went blank. He says, he goes, I was in love with you. He says, but you went blank. It was like you disappeared into another planet,
Mhm.
which makes sense because that's what I did when my dad was with me. And you tend to shut yourself down so you don't have to be in that moment.
Mhm.
And a part of me is like, do you still call it rape because I didn't know? You know what I mean? And I feel like it was rape because I didn't know. But the truth of the matter is, I never said no because I didn't know what was happening.
Mhm.
So we had a conversation. We talked about it.
Mhm.
And I believe in my heart of heart, if you approach somebody with concern and curiosity and stuff like that, instead of yelling at them for something, you will get your answers.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I wish I knew what sex was. I didn't understand it. And I don't remember what happened in the car that night because he's right. I probably did zoned out. And I said, did anything else happen? Because I really didn't know. And so we talked about it. So the rape wasn't like I could defend myself because I just disappeared.
Well, I want to pause on that before I ask you a key question and let viewers know what we're talking about is a fight, flight, freeze
Mhm.
response to trauma. Because when you go through trauma, there's brain chemistry. I explain it in pretty good detail in chapter 1 of my book, what's going on. It's very helpful to understand because in evolutionary terms, you know, when you're being chased by a lion, you have a choice. You can run like hell. That's flight. You can fight, like get a spear and fight the lion, and that's what people do, or freeze and pretend like the lion doesn't see you. You like a frozen bunny, and will, that's a very normal response. And some ignorant people will say, well, you didn't say anything, you just shut down, and you clearly went into the freeze
So
mode.
is that what that is?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what it is. And it's a completely, what you did is completely normal. It's a survival instinct to stay alive. And so in explaining the physiology of the science, what you went through, did he say those words, I'm sorry?
Well, he said he was in love with me. And he did say, I think he was more hurt because I didn't reciprocate the love.
Oh,
Because I didn't know that's what it was, but we were just such good friends.
yeah.
I didn't know what love was. I never saw love in my family. I didn't know
Okay.
what relationship was. I mean, people in school were dating and going out together, and I'm under a car, fixing a car somewhere, and stuff. So it wasn't, he did say he was sorry I felt that way, but he also said it hurt because he really was in love.
Interesting.
And when you're 16 years old, nobody knows what love is.
Well, not only that, you're 16 years old, you don't know what love is, and you don't know what sex is all about because your
No.
parents and people who should have explained these things, the things about consent
Mhm.
and, what's going on and this and that, fell short of their responsibilities to explain that to you. The only thing you knew about sex was pretty twisted given the fact that you had been molested by your dad. So
Yeah.
you're not really prepared,
For the healthy.
for the healthy. I get your point. You got to have a little empathy for Robert because he was in love with you. It wasn't like he was
Violent.
No, he wasn't being violent or anything. Like I said, the minute he started touching me, I just disappeared.
you froze
And
as a
he
result.
said your
Yeah.
eyes were in a glaze. He goes, Kathy, it was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah,
There's-
but that's your body going into, hey, I gotta survive.
Yeah, but I didn't know that.
I mean, I'm so grateful you're here, and I'm grateful that you're willing to share this stuff because let's face it, this is not an easy conversation.
No.
I mean, rape is
Horrific.
it's horrific, and I've met people in prison that are there for 25 for life for one rape. So and rightfully so. It's a horrific crime.
Well, people don't understand, especially if you're a child. Right then and there, when something like that happens, you have just lost your childhood because now you're in survivor mode.
Yeah.
Now you're suspicious. Now you're cautious.
Yeah.
You're always looking over your shoulder. What's going to happen? I hated coming home from school.
Yeah.
I didn't like it when my dad walked into the house. I have no safe place.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I've always wanted in my life, was a safe place
Hmm.
with someone who would make me a priority, somebody that would, that we can be on the same.
Right.
It's just something I don't, that's one thing I'd like to see before I die, is to see what it's like to be loved and to give love back without a wall in between.
Well, and you wanted it and you deserved it. And sadly, you didn't get it. But by sharing this, hopefully people are listening that will say, you know what? For whatever reasons, I'm not comfortable talking to my daughter or my son about sex or consent and all these things. And they'll decide, I'm going to have the strength to make sure that that doesn't happen to my kid in the backseat of a car where they freeze. And then they're sitting there talking about it decades later.
I think I don't know if it's so much about talking about sex as much as it is about talking about the importance of being in control of your body. I think kids need to know how to love themselves enough so they don't have to go looking for it somewhere else. I think you need to teach a kid about acceptance within themselves instead of looking for it for somewhere else, because that's what I was doing. I also think they need to learn to respect themselves, and they have to know that their body is their vessel. And you need to have peace in the vessel that you live in. Because it's not about your physicality as much as it is about your soul and your spirit that you want to give out to others, if that makes sense at all.
Absolutely.
Complete.
And but to talk about seriously, I think the curiosity today, when I see that, I never forget lip reading one of my kids in the neighborhood to a song, and I'm going, what the hell did you just say? And I'm going, I don't know the words in song. Some of it is so
vulgar.
It is. There's no respect for your own human body. People just think sex is sex, and it's not. This is a gift to share with somebody else. It's not about sex. It's about sharing the preciousness within yourself with someone else. But right now, I'd like to have the sex, so who cares? Hey, we're going to be honest. We're going to be honest.
Well, all right. There you have it. Yeah, write that time code down, Mel, so we can make some editing choices. Anyway.
I also think with today's culture, with social media, with Facebook, Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. And
well, look at the way we dress today. Everything is skin tight.
Yeah, exactly.
I would if I didn't have the cellulite in the belly right now, but hey.
Me too. But I think, a lot of kids are looking, you said something where you're always looking for approval elsewhere, whether it's a person, a partner, a car, something like, okay, if I have that perfect job, then I'll be happy. We're always like waiting for the perfect thing to come along in order for us to be happy.
I think
we need to find the happiness and the joy within ourselves.
It really is.
Yeah.
I'm a goofball. I mean, I came home from the road one time and I was in 9 days in 10 days.
Oh, wow.
I was changing on the airplane. I was going from job to job to job. And I came home and I'm crying. You know how you get got to give yourself a pity party. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And in my office on the wall, all these pictures of kids that I've either gotten surgery, educational programming set up, just helping other families. And that, so I'm like, hey, I'm all alone. I have nobody with me. I'm doing this all by myself, and blah, 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 the whole party, right? And I look at all the kids on the wall and I'm like, screw the kids. I was just so
exhausted.
And then I was sitting there and I turned around and then the wall is a picture of a cartoon of a little girl with flowers going to the heaven. And it said, God, if I give away all my love, would you give me a refill?
Oh.
Now, I consider God my best friend. I don't consider him to be, I'm not fearful of him or anything. I think he has a fabulous sense of humor. And sometimes I don't. So I looked at this thing and I go, what's my refill? I can't ask him to do everything. I need to take responsibility for me. So I thought about it and I thought about it. What is my refill? It can't be another person. It got to be something for me. Well, one of the things that I learned how to walk again was swimming. and I love being in water. And I would swim in everybody's pool in the neighborhood while they were at work. They don't need to know where I am all the time. And so I, for 5 years, saved money, and I put in one of those endless pools that where you swim in place.
Okay.
And my first thought was, oh, what about the kids? It might be too deep for the kids. Or what about my friends? Oh, I'm midgets. And what about my friends in wheelchairs? I got to make it accessible. And I'm thinking about everybody, but it's my refill.
Mm.
And I didn't think. And it said, no, Kathy, this is your refill. So I designed the pool for my height. So I have the water up to my chest, and I could jog and work it out. And then I have it 6 feet where I can tread the water, and then I can turn on the machine and swim as long as I want, which is usually a minute because I'm too lazy. But I like the jogging and the dancing better. That pool fills me up emotionally, spiritually, and physically. It is a safe place. And in my backyard, I got my hawk that comes down to say hello. I got my lizards that are, I don't know what the heck they're humping, but it makes me crack up. I got a hummingbird that I feed hummingbirds, and I have one fat hummingbird that I swear is going to sue me for diabetes. And I have this, one day I'm in the pool and I'm jogging and a bobcat went by. And I'm like, hello.
Like,
You know.
Dr. Doolittle.
Well, it's my fault. It's my fault. Because before I went on the road, there was a kitten underneath the fountain, and I kept feeding it. I thought it was a kitten. And I came home from the road after being on the road for 2 months. I came home, and one day it was sitting in the driveway, and I go, boy, did you get big.
Oh, shoot.
And it turned around and it looked at me, and I go, oh, yeah,
Bobcat.
oh, shit. Okay, you have a good day. And I went right back in the house.
Good.
And he bought another bobcat with him one time. So I don't know if he was just saying hi to my stepmom or what, but he just looks at me in the pool and keeps going.
Yeah, you fed him.
Yeah, I didn't know. But my neighbors keep telling me, quit feeding the animals, the raccoons, the opossums. They're all God's creatures. They need food, you know? And so I got yelled at about the raccoons, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh. how
You
funny.
had one of the most fascinating survival stages I think we've
ever
had.
talked, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny.
delivery.
I ask you about, where you transition to survival. You talk about the story about the Jeep running over your face. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of, it's, you laugh or you cry. I guess we're making choices here, but then the cancer comes, but you're still in the survival stage. And then you start confronting the bad guys. One of many things I love about you, Kathy, is I really believe strongly that in order to thrive, you've got to confront the bad guys, the bullies.
Mhm.
You got to confront them. You can't let them get away with this.
No.
I'm about to go public, going against a guy who did some really horrific things on a very, very big scale and has never had to answer for it. Not ready to go public about it yet, but it takes some courage to do that. And I was invited to go onto a very large show and talk about it recently. And I thought about it. I thought, you know what? Do I practice what I preach, or do I just keep it to myself where it's nice and comfortable and don't rock the boat and blah, blah, blah.
It's not that comfortable.
Yeah.
Not at all.
It's not that comfortable. You're right. Because of this guy, a lot of young women were molested because he didn't pick up the phone to call the cops. What kind of man is that? It's a coward.
Yeah.
And he needs to be called out and needs to answer for that. So anyway,
And there's ways to do it. Maybe doing it in a public platform may not be the best way.
or maybe it is.
Or maybe it
Yeah, no, this is kind of a public thing. I got to, but whether it's public or private, it takes courage. And
Yeah.
the fact that you marched in to talk to your dad in front of his therapist, the fact that you, also the term rinse and repeat, it wasn't just one episode with your dad and it was
No.
magically cured. You had to cycle through that a few times. It sounds
Sure did.
like.
It sure did. It took about 10 years
Yeah.
of going back and forth.
Yeah.
Thinking it's over with each time.
Mhm.
But I was blessed. My dad didn't have to admit it. He could have denied it
Mhm.
Mhm.
through the rest of his life. He could have just let me beat the crap out of him because he told the doctor I could.
Mhm.
And I saw there was no need to beat him up because it's done and over with. And we have a horrible habit of carrying things so that people can have sympathy or empathy on us. I don't want sympathy. I don't need empathy. I need to embrace. And I love life. I love this gift primarily because I get to see things that people take for granted.
Yeah.
I see the hummingbirds. I see the grass growing. I see the flowers when they're in bloom. I always say God's my best boyfriend because my roses are in bloom. He sent me flowers today. You're awesome. You know, I like to laugh with what's going on. And wherever I go, I talk to everybody. When I'm on a plane, by the time the plane lands, bye, Kathy, have a nice day, you know, and from everybody on the plane, I take people's babies that are crying on a plane. I go, would you let me walk your baby? You know, I'm not going to go anywhere. I was not going to open a window or anything. And a lot of times, parents are so nervous trying to get the baby to stop crying that the baby continues crying.
Right, exactly.
So I don't hear him. So I lift him
I
up.
don't hear him.
And because I'm calm, the baby falls asleep on me every time.
That was good.
And then the mothers are always like, the mother and dad go, what did you do? I drugged them here. You know,
That's so funny.
That is
That
funny.
reminds me of Leo Fender, who invented the electric guitar. He lived 2 streets away from me. And I wrote a book with Mrs. Fender, and Leo Fender was also deaf. And Mrs. Fender told me that whenever a song came on that he didn't like, he just simply turned down his hearing aids.
I used to close my eyes. I'm not listening.
You know, but Kathy, you know,
Oh, that's funny.
there's so many rich opportunities to kind of share the clinical side of your story, because earlier, a little while ago, you mentioned that the first time you went to talk to your dad, there was kind of a sense of denial and like, what are you talking about? I want to give a label to that. It's called gaslighting.
Mhm.
It means that it's victim blaming. It's like he's the abuser. You had the courage to confront him. And the abuser tries to turn it around and say, what's wrong with you? You're crazy.
Mhm.
That didn't happen.
Okay.
And I just want people who are listening and heard that part of your story to realize that's a technique that abusers use.
Yep.
But thank God that your dad finally kind of manned up at some level to give validation to what actually happened. And also for you for forgiving him. You know, and like you say, it wasn't a clean linear line. It was a 10-year somersault kind of,
Process.
takes a
you know,
while.
process.
It,
Yeah.
it takes a while to drain a clogged faucet.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it is. It's just constantly trying to drain this stuff up, but not understanding why. And my dad didn't have to admit it. I'm grateful for that.
Mhm.
Who's the person I'm going to work it out with? A
Yeah.
therapist? No, the person who did it.
Right.
Yeah. And in the prison volunteer work that I do, the inmates come in very macho, very, I didn't do it, you know, just, you know, all the faked innocence
Yeah.
and all that, you know, all that nonsense. And it takes about 2 years in the program for them to finally just break it down and take responsibility and apologize. Probably 5% of the inmates are never going to admit it. You know, I don't know if OJ is ever going to man up and issue the apology he should. My guess is he doesn't have the courage to do that. Although we would all respect him more if he did.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Sure.
But your dad did. And I think that's a gift.
Yeah.
It was a gift for me.
Yeah.
I could have been stuck in this story for a long time to come.
You
Yeah.
danced with them,
I did.
right? Like you were, you know, laying next to him when he took his last breath. I mean, that is a huge gift. I was able to have that gift with my parents.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're okay with me sharing it, but that won't stop me. Tanya's dad also had Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
So there's a connection there.
Yeah.
And
It was tough to see.
yeah.
Pardon?
It was tough to see, to witness that.
Oh, I had fun with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to remember, I love kids. I'm always in imaginary land
Yeah, that's true.
with the kids.
And
And that happens with Alzheimer's. And it was interesting because my dad, one day, he would go, I can't find my barrack. I'm going, you can't
Uh-huh.
find what? He goes, my barrack. I go, Dad, where are you? He goes, I'm in the Army. I go, okay, number 32. He goes, thanks.
Yep.
He goes, I got to get to boot camp.
I did these with
He goes, I got to go to boot camp. I'm going, well, okay, you better go. Why don't you come in with me? And I said, I guess I'm in the Army now. You know, like, well, yeah, let's get to boot camp, Dad. Let's go. And it was interesting because he was never in the Army. He was in the Air Force.
But you just gave somebody a huge gift just now, because we're seeing an increase with Alzheimer's. You know, my friends' parents now are getting to that age. All of our parents are getting to that age, you know, and the biggest gift, I worked in hospice care for almost 2 years, and I absolutely loved it. And I remember my dad would go, where's Treva? And Treva was my dad's mom. I'm like, oh, Daddy, she just went to the store. She'll be back in about 5 minutes. And I think and then they hallucinate, they see things.
Oh, yeah.
They
Oh,
see
yeah.
things. And he said, we were just watching TV one night, and he gets up and he starts yelling at these people like, get the hell out of my house, get the hell out of my house. And I'm like, okay, Daddy. I grabbed his hand, and we had a courtyard. And I opened up the door, and I said, okay, Daddy, you tell everybody to get out. And he was like, get out, get out, get out. You know, and I think the biggest mistake that a lot of families do, and a lot of family members, is that try to fix it.
You can't.
Not going to happen. So I always say do their dance, because that's their reality.
I look at it like respecting the journey. I would be a part of your journey. It's not about me right now. It's about you. And I'm going through the same thing with my mom now. For the last 18 years, I've taken care of both my parents. And my brother, they go, why do you bother? She doesn't remember you. I go, but I remember her.
Yeah.
And I get to love her unconditionally in that moment. And she can't hear or see very well. And I would lay next to her in bed. I would spoon her, and I'd put my mouth next to her ear, and I would reminisce with her. And for some reason, I remember all the stories that were told from her sisters and brothers. She had 6 of them. And I would just reminisce with her, and you can see her smiling, and she goes, boy, you remember a lot. And I go, yeah. And then she'll go, now, who are you to me? I go, I'm your daughter. She goes, you're my mother? I go, no, I'm your daughter. I came from your vagina. And then she'll start cracking up, because I always do it with a B. And then she starts laughing, and she goes, well, don't go back. I go, I'm not going back in there. I'm 6 foot tall. You're 5 feet now. Where the hell? Where am I going to get headroom?
I'm glad you're telling these jokes, because I'm never going to with it. Oh, wow.
But but it's called respecting the journey.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, all her favorite things that she used to love, she doesn't like that anymore. You know, foods and certain things. And I just like, the sad part is they don't drink water. For some reason in that generation, water is not the thing. And so this visit that I was just there this week, and I bought a watermelon, cantaloupe, some pears. I bought her all water content foods. And boy, did she eat the watermelon. She ate it all. Her body wants it, but you can't force them. And she kept, oh, that's good, you know, and she kept eating it. I just feel when I'm with her, as heartbreaking as it is to watch the journey, I feel blessed. I feel privileged. I feel honored that I can be there for her when nobody else in the family will.
Yeah. It is a blessing.
And it's a gift.
Yeah.
It's a gift.
Well, and I mean, this is a great place to segue, because the Thrive stage is full of gratitude. I listened and I heard you say that word, gratitude. And you know, it's a blessing and a gift, and that's all thriving. And I feel like I have a pretty decent sense of your survival mode, and what it took at, you know, some level to get back on your feet. Is there anything else before we kind of transition out of the survival stage into thrive and take a break, that you want to share about those who are getting back on their feet? Any advice you have for these folks?
I think for me, life is not as serious as you make it. I believe that it's an incredible journey if you choose to make it that way. But whatever decision you make in your life, it has to be about you. Because you're no good to anybody until you're good to yourself. To be a victim in this life, you wasted it. You disrespected the gift called life. to embrace it, to analyze it, to look at it, and see where it's been and where you are today, you will realize that you have survived as well as anybody else. So respect the journey, love yourself, honor yourself. And more importantly, in this life, it's not about what you say, it's about what you hear and how you hear it and how you perceive it. So make good choices.
Wow. There's about 15 refrigerator magnet
Yeah,
quotes on
I know.
there.
I wish I had fun.
Well, that's what I love about this podcast because you go back and back it up and write that down, put it on your refrigerator.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I love how you were looking at the camera, like that. That was nice.
Now I'm looking at my peeps. I'm looking at my peeps.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to come back because the last episode I always get the most excited about because that's where we talk about Kathy Buckley's huge achievements, every single mega TV show and just all over the place, working with Tony Robbins and a whole bunch of other people we're going to talk about. But, the thing is having you here in person, Kathy, is so valuable because, we're all regular people. Tanya's a regular person to some degree, I guess I am. You certainly are. But, people that have been through this just unbelievable shit show and have not only endured it with some class and dignity, but have gotten back on their feet. But it's as if the trauma woke people up to this inner strength and say, you know what, if I can survive that, maybe I can go on to the Phil Donahue show or this show or that show, Johnny Carson's Tonight Show, which I know you've done. And maybe there's no end in sight with the God-given talents and abilities that I have. That's the power of this whole post-traumatic thriving discussion.
You really don't know when stuff hits the fan, you really don't know the strength that is within you. Because when that stuff hits the fan, just like with you, it's like, okay, I got to get into survival mode. Like you when you were a kid. Recovering and all that.
Yeah.
Right?
When I hear you saying post-traumatic stress, sometimes it's not the actual physical aspect of the trauma, but it's your mindset and how you're going to stay in that trauma. So survival mode is about a choice. You have to choose to get out of the mindset that you were a victim of a situation in that moment.
That's why we use this. Right.
What, you think I could read?
I knew she could read. Why did you?
That's why we use that.
I know.
Well, but the thing is, Kathy, I'm glad you said that because it's a process. You don't just get run over by a Jeep and then bounce out. I feel like thriving. You got, you
get up and you go, well, thank you very much. I got to go now.
Yeah, thanks for waking me up. Now I can thrive.
Hey, you guys, you messed my hair up. What's up with you?
And there's sand all over me. The point is you got to properly heal. You got to spend your time in the dive mode in the hospital. And I loved what you said about self-care, taking care of yourself and taking care of Kathy instead of everybody else I'm worried about right now. That they're all wonderful. I'm going to keep doing that. But right now I got to take care of myself. I got to accept help where it's offered. I got to look out for myself and my self-interest. Not that we become stuck there and selfish.
No, you're not selfish, but what you're doing is surviving the gift that's been given to you.
Yeah.
Remember when I told you about the lady in the hospital, the nurse who was stroking my forearm? Mm-hmm. That made one of the biggest impact of my life. That was a touch of caring. That was a touch of acknowledgement. And you know how when people go, hey, how are you doing today? And they say, fine. I really don't know what fine is. Does that mean you have a pulse?
Oh, she does. Go ahead.
And that, but.
Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Who is this woman I'm sitting across from?
I'll follow me out there. Prefer not to. Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. It's more like maybe started asking people like, how's your wellness? I'm like, hey, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. Well, it's like they almost just attempted a suicide this morning, so they're not really fine.
Fine, yeah.
It's just the culture that we have.
It's what we've been taught.
Yeah.
Well, what I did with me is I took a dictionary. That's how old I am, okay, people? I took a dictionary and I went through it looking for all positive words. Fantastic, terrific, marvelous, incredible. I wanted to change my mindset. So when people say to me, how you doing? I'm fantastic. I'm fabulous. And people are like, oh, okay, what's wrong with you? You know, because they don't know what to do with it. Other people get excited about it. You know, you change their state in that moment. But the important thing is in that moment, even if I feel like shit, I start feeling good because my mindset tells me so. It's all about the words you choose is who you become. It really, truly is. And I just really, people would change their vocabulary because if you really think about it, 90% of your vocabulary came from somebody else. And that became, and you claim it as your own, but it may not fit who you are today. So go through your vocabulary list, see what's yours or belong to your parents and give it back to them and create a whole new vocabulary for yourself.
I'm going to do that, actually. I'm going to go and get a dictionary. I like that idea.
Create a whole new vocabulary for yourself.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've been a negative Nancy for about 6 weeks.
We're going to get Nancy out of you, girl.
And guess what? Guess what? More negative Nancy's came my way. I was like, okay, no more.
You welcome it. You welcome it. You will welcome it.
It was like chaos, literally for 6 weeks, and so I like that. And I'm normally like a very joyful, happy person. I always default to joy. I may have my moments, but I always default to joy. But you know, I think if the day we stop learning and the day that we stop doing personal and professional development, I think that's the day that we die.
Yeah.
So what you just said, anybody can do. I mean, Tony Robbins still does it. Lisa Nichols probably still does it. They all do it.
Yeah.
That's why they're positive. That's why they're successful, and success, not, you know, monetary success, you know, but they're successful within themselves because they're happy.
Yeah. I was just in Houston last week, and I traveling for long periods of time. You get to the hotel, and the kid at the hotel, he goes up and he goes, "How you doing?" I said, "Fine." I said, "How you doing?" He goes, "It's the best day of my life." And I go, "What happened?" He goes, "I don't know. I'm still alive. I got a job, and you know, I get to meet you." And I just thought, that's that. I thought about that for another week.
And that's changed your mindset, didn't it?
Completely.
It did. And you know what I like with people, I tell my students, I always tell my students, I said, look, you want somebody's attention. If you ask how they're doing and they walk away and say, fine, it's not true. But if you touch them, the hands or forearm, and say, so how you doing today? They will be honest with you. And they will say whether they're hurting or if they're happy. They won't say fine, because now you've taken the time to look in their eyes and touch their physical being to the point where they will go, well, I'm having a difficult day, or actually, I'm feeling pretty good today. But touch, just a gentle touch on the forearm, that nurse changed my attitude on a lot of things just by acknowledging me as a human being.
That's beautiful.
Well, it's beautiful, except for I would feel like somebody would say, well, why is the creepy old guy touching me? So anyway, we'll get to that in the next episode. On post-traumatic thriving, where we talk about whether we're going to die, survive, or thrive.
The choice is yours.
All right. We'll see you back for more on the next episode.
Thanks for supporting our podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on your favorite social media. For books, merchandise, or to donate, visit CoreIQ.com. Post-Traumatic Thriving is produced by CoreIQ, a nonprofit with a mission to teach the life skills we all need but are not taught in school. CoreIQ and the Post-Traumatic Thriving podcast are for informational purposes only and do not provide medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your licensed medical and mental health care providers.